the Raleigh chapter. And today we have Dianne Chase and Sid Chopra. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those names correctly. Sid Chopra is the president at lookwiser.com. He's an entrepreneur, veteran, IT professional, and also a CIO of a medical practice. He volunteers as a project lead of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, NIST. He has received the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, and he has a passion for making presentations efficient, effective, and reliable. Meanwhile, we have also, not meanwhile, Dianne Chase, who is the president and founder of Chase Media. She is a strategic communications and crisis management expert, accredited with a Genius Business Storyteller partner, which is only one of only two in the entire world. And her purpose is to help people become authentic and impactful communicators. She's currently serving as the president of IABC, which is the International Association of Business Communicators in Charlotte. Now, before we continue on with the meeting, there is a hard stop at 9:30. We are going to go ahead and have the chat room be, or the chat on the side of the screen for all the questions. There are going to be slides where they will be able to answer those questions. And after the meeting, if you'd like to go to the InfoSeCon lounge, you can continue conversing with both Dianne and Sid. And also if you can fill out the survey on the session as well. Okay, so does anyone have any questions for me at this time? Okay, all right, Sid and Dianne, back. I'm going to hand it over to you. I am going to stop my video so you don't see me, and I will also go on mute, but I am available if you have any questions or needs.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch. I appreciate that. I just wanted to thank all of you for coming today, and to see if we can't shed some light on a problem that has vexed a lot of people in this. And I'm having a little bit of an issue trying to share my screen here.
We have a bunch of IT people in the room. Maybe they can help.
Does anybody know how to share a screen?
It's currently being shown, so we do see it.
Okay, there. Well, you know, when we're dealing with technology, things go wrong. And we like to say that we can make things bulletproof, but you know, every once in a while, something happens and this. What? Did I just lose everything? Did I lose everything? What's going on? Am I still on? Am I still on? Hello?
I'm not sure if this is part of your presentation or not.
Oh, man. Can you look into this? Is this real? Okay, I don't know what the hell's going on. If you guys can see if you can figure out what's going on, I appreciate it. I'm just going to go ahead and go on with the presentation as is without it. It's predicted that by 2021, a business will fall victim to a cybersecurity attack every 11 seconds. And the payout, the average payout is about $41,000. But the average cost of a data breach is about $4 million. And that, you don't want to have too many of those. Now, for most companies, what they really want is just some way of making this problem so simple and just have it off my desk. It's hard enough to deal with life as it is. And these executives and these teams, they just don't have time to prepare for something that they don't know if it's ever going to happen. But the problem is it does happen. Far too many times. The threats to our way of life, our businesses, even our governments and militaries are ubiquitous. And what we do to protect ourselves is the primary importance. The impact for us, if we don't do that, can be significant. Comparitech did a study in 2019, and they found that after 3 years, companies that were hit by a substantial data leak were still down 13% from the industry average. So the cost is really high. If you think about the valuation of a company going down 13%, it's really, really tough on these companies. And sometimes the company doesn't make it. 10% of the companies went out of business. These are typically smaller businesses. 10% of them went out of business, 25 had to file for bankruptcy, and 37% experiences significant financial loss. When you look at that as an individual thing, it's one thing. But when you aggregate it over all the industries, over all the companies in our economy, it bubbles up to a national security issue. And what retired General, Major General Patricia Frost said to me is that we've been in a war for a very long time and just nobody seems to realize. So as cybersecurity experts, it's our job to educate these people of the threats that they're facing and what the impact of those threats are to people's data, to their information, to their infrastructure, to their way of life and their health. But that's not something that a lot of us have training in. And there's a really wonderful feeling that, you know what, I will cross this bridge when I come to it. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to work too well. We'd like to think that this exists, that we can, whenever we need them, we can, break a glass and pull out somebody from public relations and they can make the problem go away. It just doesn't work that way. Perhaps one of the greatest, one of the most seasoned chief information officers there is a gentleman by the name of Steve Cooper. And Steve is a partner in Strategic Information Concepts. He was the former CIO of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. He helped stand up that department, was special assistant to the president before that, and then became the CIO of Commerce. And somewhere in that, he was able to squeeze in a little stint as the CIO of the American Red Cross, where Rita hit, Wilma hit, Katrina hit. So he's seen this, the impact of 9/11, as well as some of the greatest hurricanes that's hit the United States. This is a gentleman who has had a leadership role in the front seat of some of the biggest disasters that our nation has ever faced. And yet, he says that we're just, as a profession, we're just weak at communicating outside of our domain and our expertise. When we have to try to talk to somebody in another business unit or something like that, we just don't do very well. And it's not our fault. It was never really part of our curriculum, and it was never really emphasized for us to get these skills. We were well trained, but we were well trained in technology, not in communication. So why should we care? Well, it turns out that there are companies that have a data breach that are able to recover and recover very well. And sometimes they actually can do it in a month. Whereas some companies fail, these companies can recover and even thrive in a very short period of time. What's the difference? What is the right approach to respond to a cyber threat? Well, this is something that I have to say I'm not an expert at. I've been in IT since I was 15 years old. I've written programs, commercial programs, worked on billion-dollar product lines. I've been a security instructor in cybersecurity controls. I've been a system administrator. I've been a cybersecurity auditor, IT security auditor, and I just don't have great answers. But there are some organizations that are available that we can go to. The National Institute of Standards and Technology. There's a computer security handling guide that we can leverage if we need to, and they've got a lot of stuff that we can pull in. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, for now, just try to take a few minutes and try to come up with a response. So here's your challenge. You've got a problem with, and if this sounds familiar, it should. Hackers from a foreign government country have hacked into your systems. They're using some of the most destructive malware to date. Your challenge is to devise a plan, a response plan that will give them, describe how you're supposed to react to this in high-level activities, to include communications to stakeholders, to law enforcement, to external stakeholders, and how are you going to make sure that what you communicate is what these different groups of people need? So your challenge is, how do I respond to a cyber breach? And I'm going to have to answer what happened, when did it happen, and how did it happen? And I'm going to need to communicate that information to internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. We're going to get, at the end of that, we're going to give a 1-minute retrospective for you guys to share your experiences. Okay, so 1 minute, you're going to have to do that. Okay.
And I put the questions and a little bit of information on the exercise in the chat, everyone. So you'll have about 7 minutes, I believe we said, Sid, and then each group will have a 1-minute report out what you came up with.
Okay. I don't see the, Diane, I don't see the instructions in the chat. Am I wrong?
I don't see them either. And how many breakout rooms with 29 people?
Make it 5.
Okay. And I'm letting participants choose their own rooms.
29. So Diane, were you able to post that in the chat?
Okay, I created 5 breakout rooms.
Sorry, I've been on mute. I've been talking. It's in the chat, and thanks for doing that. That's perfect. 5 in each room. That's great.
I guess, okay, there it is. Perfect.
So participants, if you can go ahead and pick a room to join, because you are able to assign it yourself.
Oh. Pick a number.
So I see John and Joni, they've picked room 3. So unless you guys would like me to assign one for you, it's up to you.
Go ahead and assign them.
Yeah, just do an auto. Makes it easy.
I'm not sure how to do that. So assign to room 1. I'm just going to assign them 2. I am definitely doing this very randomly, so.
Random is good. Mix it up. Just like in a crisis.
Yep. 3 and Ed. Oops. Okay. Room 1 has 5, admin not joined. I'm not sure what that means. Doug, room 2 has 3. Room 3 has 4. Room 4 has 4. Room 5 has, well, Sid's in there as the second Sid is in there, so they basically have 3.
Looks like there's several people who aren't in a room yet, though. Oh, there they go.
There we go. And I'm putting him in number 2.
Yeah, don't put, you don't need to put us in one.
I didn't mean to. Like I said, I wasn't looking at.
Okay, no problem.
So, yeah, I have you in room 1, so I'm going to move you out. I can't move you out. So,
Where did Sid go?
I'm not sure where Sid went. And Robert Pitney, I have you in room 5. It looks like, I'm not sure if you guys, how you get into a room. At the very bottom of my screen, I see a breakout room, so you might be able to go. So I have like mute, start video, participants, share screen. So
There's
I show a breakout room.
there's 3 little dots, what says more.
Okay.
So if you click on that, you'll see join a breakout room. There we go, I think.
Rob Reynolds. Where's Rob Reynolds?
Looks like Stephen Price still needs a room, and Rob Reynolds and Scott.
I'm showing unassigned is just Sid. I see everybody else in a room. Okay. If you are not in a room, could you go ahead and type in chat?
Oh gosh, did we give them a warning? Can you give them a 2-minute warning that they need to wrap up? Maybe I can.
Yeah, I was typing it to them. They
Okay,
can't, I don't think that they can hear me.
Can we bring everybody back?
yeah, we gave a 2-minute warning, but I don't know that it's in the, I don't know that the breakout rooms are closing. We may have to just,
Okay. Can we close all the breakout rooms?
Okay.
Just all of them.
congratulations to Robert. He's the only one showing his face.
I think that everybody else is sort of coming online.
I was told I need to present my group's findings, so here I am.
Yay.
The breakout room's closing is 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rooms are closed.
Thank you.
All right. So how was that exercise for everybody? Any comments? Put your comments in the put your thoughts in the comments section.
It was fine. I thought it was nice to talk to somebody, to interact with them.
Well, there you go. So who's going to be the first scribe to report out here?
All right, room 3 will do it.
Rock on.
All right, I believe it was John, Joni, and Mario. Were you in room 3? Is that right? He's muted. Anyway, you know, we kind of talk about this. We have different backgrounds. You know, I'm from a smaller company. You know, Mario's from a larger company. Joni is from I guess a firm that helps assist people with their incident response and communications and things like that. Anyway, so I said I would answer. I'm answering more from a small business perspective. You know, typically when we have an incident, whether it's small or large, kind of our general approach is to get the, you know, your subject matter experts in a room. You typically in a small company intuitively just know who those are. You get them in a room, do some sort of risk impact assessment on what's going on. You know, you may take some sort of initial action to disconnect the system or something like that. Of course, you have to weigh the risk of doing that with any other potential financial or reputational operational risks and things like that. So you may choose to leave a system up and running even though you know something's happening. It really just depends on what's going on. And you know, again, depending on, you know, the results of that risk and impact assessment, you may need to get some sort of C-level involvement, you know, so they know what's going on. You don't want to keep them in the dark. And then, you know, you may have, if say you have a certain client that's being impacted, you may interface with your business folks who are responsible for that client and get them involved. And of course, you don't want to just knee-jerk react and start sending things out to clients or the public. You need to kind of really have a measured response and be really purposeful in your message there. But you know, the management would have a responsibility to sort of come up with that and have that happen at the right time. For and, you know, of course, if it has to do with a certain amount of data, if it's, you know, public data has been exposed or something like that, or it's regulated data, of course, you have to have, you need to have a press release. And something we didn't see in the answering the follow-up questions was the who. You need to determine who is going to be delivering these communications. You don't want just anybody going out there and delivering some press release. You want to have a PR, public relations, or some sort of legal counsel perhaps doing that, because you do want to protect your organization while being as transparent as possible with your communication. So, kind of all those things, at least small business perspective, we can be a little more agile. We do have instant response procedures in place, but it's really situation by situation, case by case. Did I go over my minute?
A little bit, that's okay, but you hit some fantastic points there.
Anybody else got some thoughts?
Yeah, so from team 5, I'll go ahead and go if you'd like. So with the internal stakeholders, we got to thinking that, well, gee, we're supposed to have this business continuity plan. The business continuity plan is supposed to cover like bad things happening. So one way that we could assure the employees of the organization that we're going to continue to survive is that, hey, we've thought about this type of stuff before and we can move forward, and we have specific steps that they can help with to help us in the recovery process. And so that message would probably need to come from senior leadership. So that message would probably come from and would probably should be best verbally done and not in an email that could possibly be leaked out. As far as law enforcement, we figured you'd probably have like your chief information officer or CISO call local police and Red Dart and have legal counsel on the phone as well, but start that information sharing very early in the process. So that way their investigators, and you can force multiply with their investigators quickly. Public and customers, that was a little bit harder. We kind of ran out of time before we had any really hard decisions on that, but we just knew that customers need to know that we're not going to go away and that we're going to continue to deliver. And we know that legal counsel probably needs to approve everything that's said at that point in time. But like what we would say, we kind of ran out of time before we could answer that.
All right. I'm going to ask if you would, for the rest of the people that have contributed, and if you would just put your plan, whatever you have written down, put it in the chat if you can. Let's see if we can help each other look at all the items that we should cover in our own plans, so that we don't learn the hard way. There's lots of ways to learn this kind of stuff, and the way you don't want to learn it is through experience. That's unfortunately a very expensive way of learning. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, cut this a little bit short. My apologies for that. And let's see if we can't share my screen here.
With some good points in the chat, especially Timothy mentioned too short. And that actually was pretty intentional, because in a crisis, the time is everything. The timing, the pressure you're under to come up with these messages plays a huge role in a correct response. And that's where training really comes in, because as Sid mentioned, you don't want on-the-job training when you're in a crisis. It's all about planning, preparing, and training.
And what we found over time is that this kind of experience puts us in a situation where we are way out of our element, we are not prepared, and the consequences for failure are unlike any kind of consequences that we've ever had before. So we're just way out of our element, and we have no training in it. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to bring in someone who did have experience in this, who does know how to deal with these kinds of issues, and to have them give us some guidance. And for that, I've had asked Dianne to come on board and tell us, from a professional PR person, what are we supposed to know being in IT? If we're trained only in talking about technology to technologists, what do we need to know to connect the dots when we're up against the wall and there are serious consequences for saying the wrong thing. So, Dianne, could you take it away and
Sure.
give us the benefit of your years of wisdom
Well,
and
thank you. All of my war wounds and all of that stuff, right? Are you able to share the deck?
I don't actually have control of the deck. That's a problem.
Could we get some help on that? Maybe possibly.
You should be able to have all of the controls.
I think so, Ed. We'll blame it on
This is
ransomware.
really terrible. I literally wrote a guide about how to do this. This
Exactly.
is not another. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So if you think that this is hard and you guys are alone in all of this, you're really not. This is I gave a speech at this at the National Institute of Standards and Technology at a conference for federal IT workers. And the gentleman that you see there is a gentleman who is the Chief Information Security Officer for the U.S. Department of Education. And I will tell you this, he said that you can send out emails to people saying, if you click on this, you will be fired, and people will still click on it. I will also tell you this, that if you ever borrow a $20 bill from the Chief Information Security Officer of the U.S. Department of Education, do not rip it up in front of security officials from the U.S. Department of Treasury. I'm waiting for my deportation hearing. Back to you, Dianne.
Okay. And so that story
It's
is
true.
definitely worth pursuing, right? And I am going to do my best. All right. So now what have we here? This is one of my favorite slides, quite frankly, and when I'm doing trainings, because what I really would love for all of you to take away, among all the other points that we'll cover, is the fact that a crisis does present an opportunity. Why is that? It's because in crisis, you show your true character, the true character of the organization and the leadership and all of you to come through it well, sets you up for an opportunity to not only mitigate and get through the crisis, but to actually build your reputation as an organization that does the right thing when the chips are down and everything's hitting the fan. That's when you shine. So when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, the other opportunity. So they really understand that a crisis, again, is a time not to duck under the desk. Never want to do that. You want to take that spotlight and make the most of the opportunity to do your best under pressure.
Dianne, you have to take control of the screen.
Yeah, I did say yes, but it's just kind of making me crazy here. So crisis defined: any adversity that severely disrupts business, causes damage to brand equity, reputation, and the bottom line. All of those aspects of a crisis are so important to moving through, mitigating, and coming out on the other side with lessons learned and preparedness for doing even better the next time in terms of your response. I don't know why it's being so obstinate. Communication is critical. So you all are experts, you're brilliant in your profession. And a lot of times you're dealing with the operational response, right? Just get it fixed, right? Get it back to where it needs to be, where everything's functioning well. But without the managerial response, in other words, that leadership, driving the organization, and the communications response. And the communications response is so critical to successfully moving through a crisis, because if you are fixing everything and management is in their office and no one's talking to your stakeholders and telling them what's going on, what you're doing about it, and that you've actually repaired the damage, fixed it, you're on it, then that lack of information creates more of a crisis. It can exponentially increase the damage to your reputation, because if you're not talking, other people are. They're going to fill that vacuum with misinformation. Probably your antagonists are going to have a field day, because they're like, well, they're not talking to us, so they must be hiding something, right? Isn't that always the way it goes? It seems like that is often lost. Your crisis response team, someone mentioned having people at the table, right? You need to have that crisis response team already set, pre-selected, and they're going to jump in quickly to start dealing with the crisis and moving through it. Your sample crisis response team, these are some key leaders who should be on that CRT, including IT, your chief information officer. These can change, these seats can change depending on the exact type of crisis that you might have. But generally speaking, these are key people. And we see this all the time, and we can't understand why people don't learn that eventually the truth is going to come out. So, okay, people, the question is, should we delay first and then deny first, then delay? Neither one of those is a recipe for success. You have to face the issue and deal with it and come through it. Some crisis response steps is someone mentioned an assessment. That's very important. Assess the impact, assess the scope, assess the damage across the enterprise to all of your stakeholders. That stakeholder analysis, the internal and external people, the audiences you need to be speaking to. What are the objectives of your communication? What do you want to accomplish? Your message development. This is where you're going to have templates, you're going to have standby statements, you're going to have holding statements. So initially, out of the gate, you can respond. Simple, short, whatever you have, just communicate. You're going to decide, and someone else mentions a channel, tool, venue. All of those components really are critical in terms of reaching your audiences in a way that actually connects with them, they pay attention to, and they understand. How do they get their information? All of that needs to be known ahead of time. Testing your messages, and obviously the learning process, the evaluation and adoption of new protocols. And this is important too in terms of technical and analytical views of a crisis. So oftentimes the technical and analytic is all about how do we fix it? Let's, get the repairs made and move on and deal with the facts and minimize the liability. However, as humans, we deal in emotions. So if we've been hacked, if our data's been compromised, if something's happened to us, facts are there, but they're not driving us. We're upset because we've lost trust. We feel like we're endangered. We're being threatened. So the public view is affective and emotional. It is shaped by our perceptions, right? What is our history with an organization? Do we trust them? Have they let us down again? And our emotional response to that is going to really drive how we talk about it, how we get on social media, whether we give the benefit of the doubt, whether we feel like we've been victimized by this big organization who was asleep at the wheel. Message requirements, at their core, they must be true. How long does it take any alleged fact to be found out to be untrue, right? There's during the debates, there's real-time fact checking. So it goes just without saying, it has to be true. It has to be true to the speaker. And why is that? It has to be true to the speaker because they have to be credible to your audience. your audience has to believe those messages. They have to be put in words that they understand, that have meaning to them, that resonate with them, and that are relevant to them. Key messages here, again, there's never any excuse to say no comment. And I understand that in your space, in your individual organizations and your individual roles, this may change in terms of how you intersect with it. But key messages just have to be, you have to be ready to say what you know, how you feel about it, and what you're doing about it. So you can always, even if you know, all you know is something happened at this time on this date, just put it out there, communicate, say how you feel about it. Legal counsel sometimes has their head blow up when you say that, but it's not about admitting any fault. It's about being a human and saying, you know, we really are sorry about the impact this is having on our customers. Something really simple, and then say what you're doing about it. The role of the mass media, it's all about reporting, interpreting, influencing, and proposing solutions. So there's a lot of advocacy journalism going on right now, something to be very aware of. If there's a hate group out there, you need to be aware of it. If there's an organization that has something against whatever it is your industry is, you need to be aware of it. Some of the traits, we always know they're looking for drama, right? If it bleeds, it leads. That was a phrase in journalism. I'm sure you've heard it before as well. They're looking for victims and villains. So talking about that for just a second, the villain, the victim, and the vindicator are always involved in a crisis. So who do you think is going to be out of the gate the villain? It's going to be the big corporation or the big unknown company that's trying to stick it to the little guy, or is not looking out for the welfare of their customers. And you're going to be on your back foot if you don't build that bank of good reputation, that bank of goodwill, and be transparent throughout your organization. Step up when you need to step up. The vindicator, you want to be the vindicator. You want to say, like, what, you know, this is what we did to fix it, and you take that vindicator role. Don't let the media do it. The media wants to do it. How many investigative reporters go and, get Mary Jo's $5,000 back from that crooked construction person, right? So just remember that you have to be aware of the playing field. And we all know about the court of public opinion. So since you've already been convicted by the media, I imagine we can wrap this up pretty quickly. How many times have we seen news stories where the court of public opinion has already convicted this company, this organization, this individual, only to have to walk all that back? And it was normally because no communication was being given by the organization out of the gate. Reporters need your help, very much so, especially in your industry. They don't understand what you do. They have very limited scientific technical backgrounds. Reporters today are working in the shrunken newsroom where they're expected to be covering everything from a homicide to a film review to a politician. And they don't have time to really study up on what you do. They need your help. And most of all, they need context. So you all have the data, the facts, the stats, the wisdom around what you do in a technical field. But without context, that just doesn't mean anything. And that's where miscommunication comes in, misunderstanding, which leads to reputation damage. So one thing I really want to stress is that facts need to be put in context. Crisis in social media, obviously, as we've mentioned, social media can exacerbate an incident, an issue, 1,000 times around the world in seconds. 4 billion, I just checked yesterday, 4 billion people will be on social media by next year, which is coming up in what, couple of months? So only to spotlight the fact, it's not going to diminish, it's only going to grow. The social media world, the impact that it has on business, society, culture, massive. And journalists are now they're going to social media. I know you all have seen it during the news or on any of your outlets for information, is that send us your photos, send us your videos, give us your tips, right? And they're checking social media. They're going to Instagram to get ideas for what to cover. Or if someone is disgruntled and they're posting a tweet, they can follow up with that on a newscast. The opportunities, as we mentioned, are there for you to go directly to your stakeholders with the right information, rather than trying to spend time undoing misinformation. That's the worst place to be.
Did we lose Dianne? Did we lose Dianne?
It looks like that is true. She's frozen.
We lost Dianne. Well, I have to tell you, there's a lot of tricks and not a whole lot of treats when we're dealing with this sort of stuff. And unfortunately, you have to decide whether or not you're going to be the victim, the villain, or the vindicator. And also, sometimes you have to deal with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The question is, do you end up the victim, the villain, or the vindicator? And we'd like you to end up as the vindicator. So what I ended up having to do was work with some people who are the 800-pound gorillas in the room. And there's a gentleman by the name of Lee Congdon, was the CIO of Red Hat, and he laid it out in simpler terms. The things that we have to remember when we're going back to our organization is make sure that we have a plan and that everybody agrees on it, that we've trained and are able to execute that plan. The plan, if we don't actually, if the crisis occurs and we have to go into the book to read it for the first time, it's not going to work too well. Also, even if we know it by heart, we need to be able to work with other people and that everybody's on the same page and everybody's executing, because in these circumstances, minutes matter. Your stock price can go down 13% in a matter of hours. And we've seen, stock prices plummet, 50% or more. So we don't have a heck of a lot of time, and this is not the time to learn this stuff. This isn't the time to introduce yourself to other members of the team. And this isn't the time to go through that playbook for the first time. And this isn't the time to go reach out to the experts for help. You need to have all of these things already gathered. You need to have gone through a couple of tabletop exercises and to make sure that you can actually execute the plan. And then we're not going to get it right the first time. We're going to need to adjust the plan. And this is the reason why this whole program is there, because it is too hard and too expensive to learn this the hard way. What we really do need to do is leverage each other's knowledge. I'm not an expert in this. I'd love to say that I am. I've been studying how we communicate, how we can convince people to do things, how we actually change people's behavior when we're communicating. But this is hard stuff, and there are no easy answers. And if we don't, as Lee says, our outcome is going to be less than optimal. And sometimes that means we lose, we lose our job. Sometimes it means that our company loses hundreds of millions of dollars, and sometimes it means everybody loses their jobs. The company goes bankrupt. So, what else? What other people can we look to? We can look to the government. The government's been working at this for a long time, and I bring back my favorite expert, Steve Cooper, who has been looking at this from all sorts of different angles, both from the private sector, the government, and the NGO world, to look at how do we communicate in these really critical situations. And one of the things he laments is that we have really good technical people that know this stuff, but unfortunately, when they're put in these situations where they're talking to that 800-pound gorilla, or they're, they all of a sudden got a microphone shoved in their mouth, or in front of their mouth, not in their mouth, we freeze. And it's perfectly reasonable. The problem is the stakes are too high. And to be able to have somebody that can sit down in technical terms and explain what's going on, and also say, look, this is what we're going to do for you, right? We make it those little things like, this is what we're going to do for it, or how can I help you write your story, or what can I do for you, right? Can make all the difference in the world. Well, what do? His suggestions are we identify in advance all the stakeholders and audiences that we need to communicate, to craft a generic message for each of the stakeholders, and do that in advance. So if you think about, like, when we were doing some of this stuff, we wrote down a lot of the instructions, and we just cut it and pasted them into the chat window. Well, you need to do the same thing. Can we make it so that our communication is rapid? We have to actually plan those things in advance. We have to have templates. In this scenario, when we're talking to this person, this is what we need to be able to communicate. Or here's our list of choices that we can use that have been pre-vetted, have been gone through legal, has gone through compliance, has gone through the risk officer, everybody's okay with. This is what we said. Have that all in advance. And as Dianne said, we have to be truthful. Communicating information to people and lying can be devastating. And even sometimes, the weird part is sometimes telling the truth can actually enhance your situation dramatically. I was talking to a CIO of one of the largest health systems in the country, who's talking about the problem that they had with Tylenol. Somebody had opened up, tampered a couple of the packages and put cyanide in, and resealed it. And Tylenol didn't just say, we're gonna settle this out of court, which they couldn't. They said, this is a situation that should never happen. It should never happen, and it certainly won't happen again. And they went on the offensive, and they pulled every single product they had. They came up with a way of making it so that these packages were tamper-proof, and then they put their products back on the shelf. It cost a tremendous amount of money, but the thing that they gained was an immense amount of trust in the public's eye. And that company went through the roof. They recovered, and they went beyond what they recovered, because they knew anybody that would buy that product knew that there was something wrong. This is a company who's going to jump on the bandwagon, and they're going to be proactive, and they're going to fix the problem before I even know it's an issue, right? There is a benefit to all of this. There is that small little treat if we do it right. And to do it right, we have to be able to look outside our own organizations and say, hey, I need help. I need help from you. What can you tell me about how to deal with this particular situation? So we do have some resources that are available for us that we can leverage if you have a problem. And we can have, there's a lot of government. I'm one of the volunteers. I'm a volunteer project lead with the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, which is under the U.S. Department of Commerce, National Institute of Standards and Technology. They've got a tremendous wealth of information as well as something called the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. That's that nccoe.nist.gov. These are government agencies, and they've been just a wonderful organization that works with government, works with military, works with corporations, and consolidates this information and puts together these best minds they can to come up with guidance for us. They've got all kinds of stuff. And we're going to create a landing page for you in a little bit that will help you look at some of the interviews that we showed with, for example, Steve Cooper. We did an interview with Vince Cerf, who's one of the fathers of the internet, one of the inventors of the internet, as well as other cybersecurity experts throughout the industry and other domains for that matter, including Dianne, who is the International Chair of the International Association of Business Community. If you need help assessing your crisis readiness, you can email us for a checklist, and we'll have our emails at the end. You can email us for a checklist, or if you really want, we can talk to you about a 30-minute consult. And also, you can contact us if you need help with planning or preparing. There's a thing called a crisis communication plan, and that is invaluable. The plan itself may not be what you end up using, but the effort and the activity of creating the plan is worth everything. I think that's from General Eisenhower. The plan means nothing, but creating a plan means everything. And then I can't emphasize this enough, and I've heard this over and over again, but the scenario-based training is just worth its weight in gold. We are never prepared for these situations where all of a sudden everything we do matters. There's a white hot spotlight on us, and we're stressed out but beyond belief. We haven't slept in days, and what we do has a dramatic impact. And it's that stress, that adrenaline flow. It's like no other experience, and it's something that you actually have to go through to get an understanding of what it really means and why we need to have all those things prepared for us in advance. Because in those high stress situations, unfortunately, the higher reasoning brain kind of goes and becomes dormant, and we're left with what we have written in front of us that we can follow. We can't think through these situations sometimes when we're super stressed. And if you ever in a situation where you got to respond to a crisis, please reach out and give us a call. In the chat, please feel free to give us a few comments and tell us what your takeaways from this presentation are. Let us know what you think is important. And if Diane's on, if you can, Dianne, go ahead and there's a link on our LinkedIn page that you can tell us your takeaways. These kinds of things, as I said, we need to leverage each other's knowledge. There's too much to learn, and we cannot do it all by ourselves. We need to work with other people. These are our contact information, and for all the efforts that you have, I hope this never happens to you. But if it does, I want to make sure that you come out, not the villain, not the victim, but the vindicator. Thank you so much for all your time and effort. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. We appreciate you very much. And don't hesitate to reach out.
And everyone go ahead and give a virtual applause for Sid and Dianne.
Yay.